Final program in our series that has accompanied Sacred Symbols Ceremonial Cloth, a special exhibition across the street at Vesterheim's main building. It opened in September and it closes today, so of course we have to have a big celebration in honor of the run of the exhibit. We have a two-part program today. We have one speaker with a slide presentation here in this room, and then when Carol is finished, we'll go across the street for a second presentation on beer brewing. And we will also, in the theme of the program today, toast the closing of the exhibit. Since toasts were often common at funerals, we've adapted the custom just a little bit. So I'd like to introduce the first part of our presentation. Carol Hasvold was registrar and librarian at Vesterheim for 17 years and retired in 2005. The registrar is the person responsible for cataloging artifacts, but luckily for Vesterheim, Carol did many other things, including researching artifacts and curating several exhibitions. We'll get to hear about some of that research today. One of her topics was silver, another was Norwegian American women artists, another was ale bowls. That's the topic today. So we'll get to hear about festive events and drinking customs in traditional Norway, or what are all those painted ale bowls for? Carol and her husband Paul are also among the generous sponsors of the Sacred Symbols exhibition. The exhibit and programming have some additional sponsors: Humanities Iowa and the National Endowment for the Humanities, Kate Nelson Rattenborg and Thrivent Financial for Lutheran, the Royal Norwegian Embassy, John and Veronica Pone, Eileen Russell, Jane and John Connett, and Carol and Daryl Johnson. Humanities Iowa is one of our sponsors, and we had asked you to sign in when you came. They like to have a list of the people that come. If you would like to receive their free newsletter of events and exhibitions and lectures throughout the state, just be sure that your mailing address is there and you've checked the appropriate box. They would also like your comments on this program and suggestions for future programs. So if you're able today, we would ask you to fill out an evaluation form there by the door. The first part of the lecture will happen here, and then we'll go across the street. So first, without any further ado, I would like to have you help me welcome Carol Hasvold.
Thanks very much. It's a treat to be here. I used to be here full time, so it's nice to come back once in a while and not worry about so many things. And happy to see you all here. And you're going to get the lights and get the projector, right?
Wait a second.
How this research started was one day while I was still working at Vesterheim, and my office was on the third floor of the museum, and I got a call from the Social Services Department of Iowa asking me what I knew about patterns of drinking among Norwegians and Norwegian Americans. And I said, no, not very much. And then I walked out of my office and I looked to the left, and there were approximately 250 painted ale bowls. And I thought, boy, if I don't know, I really better find out. And so I did end up doing quite a bit of research, basically from the writings of 18th and 19th century ethnographers, people who walked around the countryside in Norway and wrote down how the people were living and how they celebrated special events in their lives. And I did give a presentation to social work people for the state of Iowa down in Des Moines. And my husband, who is a Lutheran pastor, talked about Norwegian Americans and their drinking patterns as he observed in parishes here. But to step back,
our secrets are safe.
But I thought, you know, you walk around Vesterheim and you see a thing like this and you think, what in the world are these for? What is their meaning? And what is their place in Norwegian society, the place where they originated? Let's see, I have a thing with bands, don't I? Where is it? Oh, yes. Okay, the one closer to me? Okay. Drinking had its background in pre-Christian times, actually, in Norway. This is a drinking bowl from around 1100 AD from Western Norway. It's not in our collection. It is in the Folkemuseum in Oslo. Drinking was seen to be a part of heathen worship, and it took the form of a blote, or drinking as an offering to God. And I'm fascinated with words like if someone is really, really drunk too much, sometimes we say they're blotto. And this is a blota, a drinking to draw near to God. So that's a different point of view. In 1024, when Christianity was being established in Norway, drinking and brewing of ale were limited to autumn festivals and to Christmas. Society changed a lot through the centuries, but up to the time when our ancestors came to America, there was still a lot of influence from olden times. Most Norwegians coming to the United States were of peasant background, so we can ask, what was rural society like in the 1800s? Festive celebrations were part of country culture. In these special events, the people made the connection between everyday and sacred. In the way the events were carried out, the individual reinforced his place within society. Here is a giant ale bowl and an ale hen and an ale goose for dipping out the ale. There was a lot of ritual behavior, and everyone had his place and fulfilled his role. This is from a woodcut from the 14th century in Iceland. There were two kinds of festive events, those that were linked to certain times of the year, and those that were related to life events, such as marriage or death. An important part of the preparation for a festive event was the brewing of the ale. In the early 19th century, it was considered just adequate that 10 to 12 barrels of ale were brewed for a wedding, or 4 to 6 barrels for a lesser event. And neighbors often contributed food or money to these events because they were expensive and they were community events. Sprouted and roasted barley was cooked and fermented according to recipes handed down for many generations, all the way from Odin, who first taught brewing to humans. But the important thing was that the ale should be strong and good. Strong ale was a sign that the farm was prosperous and well managed. There were a lot of customs about the brewing of ale. It was associated with maleness and virility, and dirt and unruly behavior. And so if you could have a couple young guys wrestling around on the floor, which had not been recently cleaned, out in the brewing house, then you probably would have good ale. They had decorated dippers, which they used to bring the ale from the barrels to the table. And they passed the ale bowls from person to person, the middle-sized bowls. An animal horn has been used as a drinking vessel since Viking times. This is an Icelandic print again from the 1400s. The custom continued with fancy silverwork decorating the drinking horns up to the 19th century. This is a West Coast drinking horn with silver trim sent from the Voss community to Senator Knut Nelson of Minnesota after he became a U.S. Senator in this country. One of the special times for brewing ale was at Christmas. The Christmas ale should be in the barrels by December 21. Here is a Christmas winter snowy scene, winter Norway. The Christmas ale should be in the barrels by December 21, which is Thomas the Brewer's Day, and it's marked on the calendar sticks, so it's very significant. Everybody gathers round and samples the ale, and it's sort of a minor festival. Everyone had his role at Christmas. The father had to see that the animals were well fed. He set up a corn bond or a sheaf of grain on the peak of a building so the birds would have something special to eat. And he would paint tar crosses on the doorposts of the buildings for good luck and to keep the evil spirits out. The old entrance to Vesterheim showed the mother's role at Christmas. She had to clean the house and put straw on the floor for ancestors who might come back at Christmas time and sleep in the family home. She organized baths and clean clothes for everybody. One big tub, first the father, then the mother, then the children, then the hired boy, then the hired girl, and last of all, the milk girl who slept out in the barn with the cows. And the mother also prepared food, especially rummergrøt, lefse, and other rich foods, and a bowl of rummergrøt for the julenisse. So the julenisse would be happy and not make, if he was not well fed, he might make the horse go lame and the cow go dry. So it was important for the julenisse to have his bowl of rummergrøt. This is a table setting from West Coast, Norway. The father gathered the family around the fireplace, wished everybody a Merry Christmas, led with prayers and songs, and shared a festive meal, as might have been, this would have been part of one of those meals. It's a giant pouring bowl. It's nearly 2 feet in diameter, and a couple of small bowls with it for individuals or maybe sharing with your neighbor. And the father played the generous host, and he was responsible for a happy Christmas atmosphere. But more than any other time, the lowest and the highest in the family were on an equal footing at Christmas. And you can see that they have an ale tankard standing on the floor, and they have also been imbibing a bit and getting very happy and dancing and having some, is the fiddler in that painting? Yes, okay. And then the farmer goes outside and he gives a loud shout and hears the same thing from all of his neighbors. And there was a saying, you can hear that people have something to make themselves happy with, and that would be the Christmas ale. The first juledag, it was the custom to go to church. Because of the drinking at home, it was kind of difficult for many and also a challenge for the pastor. When the bell rang, they all took off their hats and fell on their knees for the prayers and readings. M.B. Landstad, who was a Protestant reformer in 19th century Norway, tells about going to Christmas church as a young boy, and he was upset by the unruly behavior of men under the influence of the Christmas ale. And he ran out of church and he was running home, and he was accosted by a neighbor and offered ale right there on the road. This neighbor was used to offering ale to the pastor after church as a Christmas greeting. By the third day, well, in olden days, they believed that the sun had died on December 21st. By the third day of Christmas, the days were noticeably longer, and so this day is very festive. It's the resurrection of the sun in the sky. Sometimes a man sat on the floor with an ale bowl between his knees, such as this nice medium-sized bowl. He picked up the bowl with his mouth only and drank it down, and then again with his mouth only, he threw it back over his shoulder. If the bowl landed upside down, the man would die within the year. If it landed right side up, he would prosper and live to drink the Christmas ale again. So there were a lot of superstitions associated with brewing and drinking of ale.